Welcome to our talk about enzymes. You should already know a little bit from digestion, and you need to know everything in yellow. There is a note pack for this, so if you're filling in the blanks, it'll be easy. Otherwise, you'll have a little bit to write. So you need to know the basic definition of enzymes. They are made of proteins, so basically everything in our body comes down to a protein, but their biggest job is doing reactions inside of us. The job of these enzymes is to do chemical reactions. So they usually break down other molecules. Sometimes they actually synthesize and put things together. And they are catalysts. The definition of a catalyst is something that speeds up a reaction, and enzymes are never used up or changed. They kind of go in there, they do their job, they pop away, they go do it again, they pop away. So I like to think of them as a matchmaker. So the reaction would still happen even without the enzyme, but the enzyme makes it faster. For example, this is a real person. I won't tell you her name, but she lives in New Prague, and she was my daughter's violin teacher a long time ago. And this guy here was my daughter's basketball coach. So I would take my daughter to violin, then I would take her to basketball, and I'm like, here's these two young people. They're about the same age, and I knew both of them pretty well. I'm like, I think they would get along really well. I became a catalyst. So I came in, and that is me back then. I introduced her to him. I actually just gave each of them a card with a picture of the other person in it, and I gave this guy some money and I said, "You need to call her up, take her out to coffee because I think you guys would get along really well." So I was the catalyst. They are now married. They have four little boys, but I am no longer part of the reaction. So a catalyst is a matchmaker. After they met, they realized they had some common friends, so I'm guessing they would have met eventually. But because this catalyst was here, I made that reaction happen faster. So catalyst is kind of like a matchmaker. Again, I put them together and then I walked away. I was completely unchanged. I'm obviously not part of that reaction, but I could go back and set up another couple. So maybe it'll be you. You never know. I'm working on my own kids though. All right, enzymes, as we know, are proteins. Proteins get synthesized by a ribosome, they get folded up in the ER, and in that endoplasmic reticulum, those proteins turn into a specific shape. These enzymes work like a puzzle piece. So if this is the enzyme, it fits into a molecule which we call the substrate. And the location where they fit together is called the active site. So the substrate locks in, the enzyme does its job, which in this example, it's breaking things apart, and the enzyme walks away unchanged to go hook into another substrate. So here's another example of how shape is important. So this would be the substrate fitting right into that enzyme in its perfect little molecular shape. All right, so enzymes do make reactions go faster, and we can even make that better by changing those reactions. So you're going to do an activity, a little animation to reinforce this, but if you add more enzyme, obviously more reactions will happen. If there's more substrate to break down, more reactions can happen. So more is faster. Temperature, you may have learned in chemistry last year that as we heat things up, we're adding energy. So adding a little bit of warmth to an enzyme reaction usually helps. But if it gets too warm, those enzymes won't work and that enzyme protein naturally breaks apart. So having a little bit of warmth is good, but if you get too hot, for example, if you get a fever, your body wants to try to get rid of that fever because if you get too hot internally, then your body's chemical reactions might not work. So fevers are good, we will learn, to kill bacteria and slow down those reactions, but too high of a body temp actually ends up hurting us. pH, that's how acidic or basic the environment is. Enzymes are super picky about that. The pepsin in your stomach needs to be really low pH or very acidic. Most other enzymes like a neutral pH, which is 7. And then inhibitors, they are things that get in the way. So in the analogy of my dating, if I had introduced those two and maybe this girl's dad would have walked in and blocked the path or shown up with the shotgun, they wouldn't have gotten together. So you can prevent a reaction, and these inhibitors, just like that girl's dad, will physically get in the way. So here's a picture of an inhibitor blocking the site of an enzyme. This is a little hard to see, but here an inhibitor comes in from the other side, and by changing the shape of the enzyme, the substrate no longer fits. It made it curve in right here, so it changes the shape of that active site by inhibiting something. All right, make sure you know these enzymes. This is review. Amylase is in saliva to break down carbs, pepsin in the stomach for proteins, lactase in the small intestine to break down lactose. And now you're going to do that animation. It will reinforce those rates of reaction. That's it.